Video games were born in the 1960s. Back then, sliding blocks were all it took to captivate us. Of course, we weren't satisfied with that, and we've been wanting more ever since. Fast forward to now, we have video games that look almost real. Just looking at a screenshot, you'd be forgiven for thinking you're looking through a window into another world. The illusion breaks, however, when you begin interacting with it. To see why this is, you need to look behind the scenes. While there's no denying that modern games have fantastic art and animation, if you take away those visual elements and look at what it is you're really interacting with, it turns out to be a lot more like those early games than you'd think. For the most part, you're still just sliding blocks around, only these blocks have millions of dollars of art and animation layered on top. It might just be a block, but thanks to the work of talented animators, it can transform into a space marine, running and diving for cover. So ask any animator, and they'll tell you the same thing. Animation is hard. Today's animation has its roots in cartoons dating back to the early 1900s. Early pioneers like Walt Disney took the often laborious art of cartoon animation to new heights when they released the first full-length animated motion pictures.
For the first time, music was a basic motivating element.
Around that time, we learned how to animate things in the real world as well. Stop-motion animation allowed us to bring our imaginations to life in ways cartoons could not. That's not to say, however, that it was any less painstaking. Techniques from both stop-motion and cartoons factor heavily in the CGI animation we see today. With CGI, we can create images more fantastic and realistic than ever before. This power does come at a price, however. CGI animation can be even more labor-intensive and expensive than those earlier forms of animation. To reiterate an earlier sentiment, animation is hard. If the objective is realism, these days we can get closer and closer, but the cost becomes greater and greater. For video games and animation both, we want them more real. That's the driving factor. This begs the question, could we ever just do it for real? Let's say we need footage of a 10-minute fight against a dragon. Now, 10-minute CGI effect shot involves a lot of animation, so the traditional route is going to get very costly very quickly. Now let's imagine instead that we could shoot the same scene practically. Get a real dragon and real warriors and film them playing out the scene. That would obviously be the fastest and most realistic way to do it. But of course, it's tough to find dragons these days, especially ones who can take direction well. In lieu of actual dragons and warriors, would it be more feasible to build robots of them and have them fight out on camera? The problem with that is, robots of today aren't just enormously expensive, they also don't move that well either. The best ones we have still aren't convincingly dexterous enough to fool us into believing that they're actual people or animals. And don't forget, if you break it, you buy it. One way to work around the cost of physical robots is by simulating them on a computer instead. There you don't have to worry about destroying your virtual performers. But unfortunately, the robot simulations we can do today aren't even on par with their physical counterparts. The physics engines we have just aren't robust enough to simulate things as complex as people or even robots. If we had something similar to the movie The Matrix, where we could build whatever we wanted, sets, people, animals, dragons, machines, etc., and have them run and perform just the same as they would in reality, this would open up a floodgate of new possibilities in these industries. You'd then be able to film a 10-minute fight with a dragon in only 10 minutes, assuming of course you're happy with the first take. And the results would seem astoundingly real, essentially because they are real. It's almost like a return to shooting effects practically. This is precisely what CI Live Digital Reality is designed to accomplish. We've created layers of new technologies that can, for the first time, accurately simulate complete worlds of arbitrary complexity. And we've built complex virtual characters that can move and interact with human levels of dexterity. In future iterations, we fully expect to be able to even surpass human dexterity.
I think they're trying to save you.